With Rainbow Six Siege going for a total of 9 years, the game has added a ton of unique weapons from different countries, companies, and locales. However, as the game's development has continued, the game has been receiving less and less new weapons over time, with Ubisoft opting for recycling the already existent weapons. Whether that be because of licensing, lack of funding, or just a simple choice not to, in today's video I'll be showing you my weapons I'd like to see added to Siege to hopefully give Ubisoft some ideas and to prove that there are plenty of weapons that could still be added. Some are weapons that Ubisoft has added to previous games in the series in the past, and others would be brand new additions. If you think I missed a weapon or if you disagree with any of my choices, leave your suggestions in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your opinions. Also, I'll be using gameplay from other games and YouTubers to demonstrate the weapons I'm talking about, and links to all creators and videos will be in the description as well. So make for sure you show them some love. Now let's go ahead and get into the video. Now, the first and arguably most suggested weapon to get added to Siege is the PP Bison, and that's for good reason. First of all, the PP Bison is one of the most iconic submachine guns ever created, and that is because of its unique cylinder drum design, which mounts it under the barrel. This makes the weapon stand out, and it's what's caused the weapon to become so popular in media and video games. Games like Call of Duty, for example, have used this weapon in plenty of their titles, and it's a lot of people's favorite weapon as well. Also, what leads a lot of people to request this weapon in Siege specifically is that it's currently on the gun rack inside of Arsenal on Clubhouse, meaning that Ubisoft is already teasing us with a model of it in the game already. I think if Ubisoft is going to add a weapon, this should be at the top of their priority list because it's requested a lot in comment sections related to this, and I just think it would be a good idea to add another high capacity submachine gun to the game because there's not many of them right now. Now, the second weapon I'd like to see added to Siege is the KSG-12. This is a pump action shotgun with a really unique feature, and that is the fact that it has 2 magazine tubes, allowing for the shotgun to hold 15 shells in total. This is one of the reasons why it's become so popular in pop culture, because of its very unique design and also because of its futuristic look. Additionally, this weapon has also been picked up by law enforcement and military around the world, which would make it fit perfectly into the Siege universe. And since it has such a unique feature, that being its 2 magazine tubes, it would allow the shotgun to have unique attributes compared to other shotguns in the game. I really think this weapon would fit perfectly into the Siege lineup because we don't have very many shotguns in the game that are unique. Most of them just end up functioning the same with slight stat tweaks, and I think the KSG-12 will manage to break that mold. Now, moving on to the third weapon I recommend adding to Siege. This is the first AR of the video, and that is the Galil. This is another weapon that has become infamous from games like Call of Duty, more specifically Black Ops 1 and 2. And there are a lot of good reasons behind that. First of all, the Galil is basically just an AK style rifle repurposed to shoot NATO ammo. This is what causes it to have that classic AK silhouette while still standing out visually. Additionally, this weapon would fit perfectly in the Siege universe for the same reason the KSG-12 does, and that is because it is used by a large list of countries in military and law enforcement purposes. Some of the countries include Guatemala, Georgia, South Africa, Vietnam, and Uganda, which would make it a perfect fit for an operator that Ubisoft develops for those regions. Now, I do understand that the M762 in Siege, that being Zofia's assault rifle, is heavily inspired by the Galil, but I still think that having the original Gen 1 design that has become famous in movies and video games would be a really cool addition, and would also probably make a lot of people excited to play that new operator, just because of how iconic of a weapon that is. Speaking of iconic weapons popularized by Call of Duty, another weapon that falls into that category is the ACR. This assault rifle was popularized specifically by the Modern Warfare series of Call of Duties, and that is pretty clear in its design. It has very modern aesthetics, and it honestly looks like a modified Scar H. I think because of its modern aesthetic, the chances of Ubisoft adding it are quite high in comparison to the Galil, because Ubisoft tends to lean more in the direction of modern weapons because of the fact that the game is set in the current day. However, the ACR does have some things going against it compared to other weapons on this list, and that is the fact that it's barely been used by law enforcement or military, which decreases the chances of Ubisoft adding it because they like to add weapons that actually have been used by the country that the operator's from. But I still think the ACR would be a good addition if Ubisoft's looking for a more modern assault rifle to add to Siege. Now, moving on to the number 5 spot, a weapon that I would love to see added to Siege is just a normal double barrel shotgun. Now, I know what a lot of you are going to bring up, and that is the fact that Vigil's Boss G is a double barrel shotgun. But Vigil's Boss G is a slug shotgun, and it is a double barrel shotgun in the over and under format, meaning that the 2 barrels are on top of each other instead of being horizontal. I think the addition of a break action double barrel shotgun would be a really cool idea. First of all, Ubisoft could add one as a secondary shotgun, since there's not very many in the game, and since a lot of them end up being just a smaller version of another gun in Siege. And I think a break action shotgun could also function as a decent primary option depending on how it's balanced. And another upside to it would be the fact that it's obviously a completely unique design that's never been done before in Siege, which would draw a lot of attention, I feel like. And it also offers potential for Ubisoft to do cool things with it it. Like, for example, giving it incense shells, allowing it to deal fire damage or something like that. There's just so much potential that comes with a double barrel shotgun that I think if Ubisoft added one, it would be a really good addition to the game. Speaking of new weapon classes, another type of weapon that I'd really like to see added to Siege is any form of lever action rifle. Lever action rifles are a pretty outdated weapon class, and they haven't really been used in combat scenarios in over 100 years. But I do think adding a lever action rifle would be possible, and I think it would be a great addition. The reason for this is because it could function as a new form of DMR or marksman rifle, allowing it to have unique animations compared to other DMRs in its category. Additionally, because of the lever action's cool design, and it also being infamous in Western films and the like, adding a lever action rifle would open up amazing opportunities for potential skins. And most people will say that a huge downside to lever action rifles is that since they're an older weapon class, it would be difficult for Ubisoft to add them into the game due to the attachment system. Well, there are more modernized versions of lever action rifles that have rail systems available that would allow Ubisoft to still add attachments to the gun model and have it make sense. I know lever action rifles may not be the most popular thing, but for me personally, I think it would be a really cool idea because me personally, I think Ubisoft should try to focus on adding super unique new weapons that have completely different animations and functionality compared to other weapons in the game already. And I think the lever action rifle fills that perfectly. Now, moving past the lever action rifle, the seventh weapon that I think Ubisoft should add to Siege is the VSS. This is another potential marksman rifle that Ubisoft could add, and it's probably the most infamous Slavic marksman rifle ever created. The reason why it's become so popular in video games is because of the fact that it's a super unique looking weapon, and it's also integrally suppressed, meaning that there is a suppressor built into the barrel. This would allow it to stand out against other marksman rifles in Siege, and since the weapon has been used extensively by Slavic countries and even India, it would fit perfectly on an operator from that region or from India. And the same thing can be said about the next weapon that I suggest Ubisoft adding, and that is the AS Val. This is another infamous Slavic rifle that became popular for the same reasons that the VSS did, and that is because it got pushed a lot in video games and in other forms of media. And just like the VSS, the AS Val is integrally suppressed. However, it is designated as an assault rifle instead of a marksman rifle, and that's because of its different foldable stock and other features like a larger magazine that allow it to function better in that role. But other than that, there are very few differences between the AS Val and the VSS. They both even have automatic capabilities, so they're pretty much the same weapon, just with slight variations in attachment, which is why I don't think Ubisoft would add both of these weapons, but adding one of them would be a great idea. This is probably one of the weapons I'd like to see the most in Siege because of how unique it is. It being an integrally suppressed assault rifle would allow it to stand out drastically compared to other assault rifles in the game, and while it would limit attachment options, I still think the upsides of it being such a unique design would make up for the fact that you'd lose customization in your barrel. Now, moving on to the ninth weapon that I'd like to see added to Siege, that is the Glock 18. Now, the Glock 18 is a weapon that most of you will likely be familiar with, and that is because Glock handguns are some of the most sold and popular weapons in the world, and they're also heavily involved in films and video games. But what makes the Glock 18 specifically so unique is the fact that it has an automatic capability, allowing it to function as a machine pistol, which would make it a perfect fit for Siege's sandbox. Siege is heavily lacking in the machine pistol front, and I think there should be more options in that category, so that way Ubisoft doesn't have to keep reusing the same couple machine pistols on every operator. And the Glock 18 is potentially the perfect choice for that. It's heavily used by law enforcement and military across the world, meaning that it would make sense in the Siege universe, and the Glock name is just an extremely popular name in general. Now, obviously that would cause licensing issues, so maybe Ubisoft would have to do some workaround to get it into the game, but I really wanted to have a machine pistol on this list, and I think out of all of the options that are out there, I think the Glock 18 is probably the perfect fit for Siege. Now, moving on to the 10th spot, we have the Singapore-made Ultimax 100, and this is a weapon that Ubisoft has added to a previous Rainbow Six game, that being Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six 3 Raven Shield, meaning that the chances of Ubisoft being able to add this to Siege is likely higher since they've been able to do it in the past. And I'm sure, as you can see, it's a very unique looking LMG. It almost looks like a Tommy gun, but scaled up with a much larger drum magazine. And I think since Siege is so lacking in new LMGs, this would be a perfect addition to the game overall, because it'd likely be easy for Ubisoft to add, and it would stand out compared to the crowd. Also, since like the other weapons on this list, it's been used by other militaries, including Singapore and the US, it would fit perfectly in the Rainbow Six universe on an operator from any of these regions. And while it may not be the most infamous weapon in the world, and it may not be super popular in pop culture, it's still a new weapon that could potentially be added to Siege, especially since Ubisoft has proven they're capable of doing it in the past. Now, move past the Ultimax 100 LMG, the 11th weapon that I'd like to see added to Siege is the TAR-21 Bullpup. This, just like the Ultimax 100, is a rifle that Ubisoft has added in previous titles. Those titles include Rainbow Six 3, Rainbow Six Vegas, and Rainbow Six Vegas 2, which, just like with the Ultimax 100, would likely make it a whole lot easier for Ubisoft to add into Siege, especially since they've done it 3 times in the past and mainline games. Also, just like with the Ultimax 100, the TAR-21 has seen a lot of use, specifically by law enforcement in the United States, Guatemala, Chile, and many other locations. And what makes this weapon stand out on this list compared to other options, in my opinion, is the fact that it's a bullpup. We already have a few bullpups in Siege, which is a rarity, especially considering that in law enforcement and military applications, they're kind of rare, because most agencies don't want to run a bullpup configuration when everyone's already used to a different configuration. But I still think adding another bullpup to Siege would be a cool thing to see, because of the fact that bullpups offer the opportunity for unique animations compared to normal assault rifles, and the fact that they just visually stand out compared to other assault rifles they're competing against. Just like with the Ultimax 100 though, the reason why I have this somewhat later in the video is because it is a weapon that's not very well known, and it hasn't really become popular in any forms of media, which would make it hard to justify adding, because it likely wouldn't excite very many people when it got announced. But I still think it would be a cool addition because of the fact that it's a bullpup, and there's not many bullpups floating around out there. Anyways, that wraps up today's video. As always, these videos are strictly my opinion, and if you disagree, feel free to leave your takes in the comments down below. If you enjoyed today's video, I make Siege content just like this twice a week, so go subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter if you don't want to miss the next upload. If you want to watch another video just like this one, it'll be popping on your screen right now that I'm sure you'll all enjoy. I'll see you next time, friends, and peace.